For nearly 2,000 years, it was a story told only by its enemies. A set of beliefs considered so dangerous to the early Christian church that it had to be hunted down and almost completely erased from history. We're talking about Gnosticism, one of the most mysterious and honestly fascinating spiritual movements of all time.
You know, the very name we use, Gnosticism, actually comes from its opponents. Back in the 2nd century, a church father named Irenaeus used the Greek word gnostikos, which means learned or intellectual, as an insult. For him and the emerging Orthodox Church, this wasn't some friendly disagreement. Oh no, this was a full-blown heresy, a disease that they believed needed to be cut out of the body of Christianity. And it was a threat, a real one, because Gnosticism wasn't just some small, fringe sect. For a while, it was a powerful rival to what we now call Orthodox Christianity. It was spreading all across the Roman Empire with its own teachers, its own scriptures, and a totally radically different vision of pretty much everything. Christ, creation, you name it. So, to stamp it out, the early church basically launched a campaign to destroy Gnostic texts, and honestly, they were pretty successful. This meant that for over 1,500 years, everything we knew about the Gnostics came from the writings of the very people who were trying to destroy them. It was a completely one-sided story, the victor's version of history.
So what was this secret knowledge that was so threatening? What did the Gnostics actually believe? Well, their whole way of seeing the world revolves around one single transformative idea.
And that idea is gnosis. Now, it's the Greek word for knowledge, but we're not talking about book smarts or memorizing facts for a test. Gnosis is a deep, inward, intuitive kind of knowing. It's the kind of knowledge that comes from a direct, personal encounter with the divine, a sort of spiritual aha moment that changes you from the inside out.
And right there, that's the core conflict. The Gnostic path was all about personal enlightenment, about waking up from the illusion of this world. And that stood in stark contrast to the path of the Proto-Orthodox Church, which was all about salvation through faith in established teachings and repenting for your sins. One path is about looking inward for answers, the other is about accepting an external authority. You can kind of see why they were on a collision course.
And that collision course, it really starts with the most fundamental story of all, creation. See, the Gnostics looked at the world, with all its suffering and chaos and ignorance, and they came to a radical conclusion. There is no way a perfect, all-good God could have created this. Their explanation for why the world is so flawed is, well, it's an epic cosmic drama. So for the Gnostics, it all begins with the monad, the true, unknowable, perfect God who lives in a spiritual realm of pure light. From this God, other divine beings called aeons come forth. But here's where the drama starts. The very last of these aeons, a being named Sophia, which means wisdom, acts on her own, without her partner. And this creates a kind of error, a shadow. And from that mistake, a lesser being is born, outside the realm of light. This being is the Demiurge.
And this is probably their most shocking idea. The Demiurge, totally ignorant of the true God above him, mistakenly believes that he is the one and only creator. And so he goes on to create our material universe. And for many Gnostics, this flawed, arrogant creator was the God of the Old Testament. To them, he wasn't necessarily evil, just blind, ignorant, the architect of a broken world.
So where does that leave us? Well, the Gnostics believed that when the Demiurge created humanity, he accidentally trapped a divine spark inside each of us, a tiny fragment of light from that higher realm, which means our spirits are divine, but we're imprisoned in physical bodies, in a material world of illusion. So for them, salvation wasn't about being saved from sin. It's about being awakened to our true divine nature through gnosis, a special knowledge brought to us by a messenger from that higher realm, Christ.
This entire complex worldview was almost totally lost to history. It was a story that had been silenced, a philosophy buried. But then, something completely unexpected happened that changed absolutely everything.
I mean, just think about that for a second. For 15 centuries, the story was completely one-sided. The only voices we could hear were the ones calling them heretics, describing beliefs they wanted to see destroyed. The Gnostics themselves were silent. Their gospels and teachings turned to ash. Then, in this incredible twist of fate, it all changed. It's December 1945, near a town called Nag Hammadi in Egypt. A local farmer is just out digging for fertilizer, and his hoe hits something hard in the ground. It was a big, sealed clay jar. And inside that jar, a hidden library. 13 ancient books containing 52 different texts that have been hidden away since the 4th century. We're talking about things like the Gospel of Thomas and the Gospel of Philip. For the first time in the modern world, the Gnostics could finally speak for themselves, in their own words. It was easily one of the most important archaeological discoveries of the 20th century. A total game changer. And the discovery of these texts didn't just show us what the ancient Gnostics believed. It also helped us trace this powerful undercurrent of their ideas, which, it turns out, never really went away. Even after its peak in the Roman Empire, Gnostic thought just kept bubbling back up to the surface. You see it in Manichaeism, which was a huge world religion that blended Gnostic ideas with Zoroastrianism. You see it in medieval Europe, with groups like the Cathars, who were condemned for believing in a good spiritual god versus a lesser material creator. And incredibly, one ancient Gnostic tradition has managed to survive all the way to today. The connection across the centuries is just startling. On the left, you've got a drawing of Manichaean priests from long ago, and on the right, a modern photo of Mandaean priests in Iraq. The Mandaeans are a group that revered John the Baptist, and their core beliefs are Gnostic. They are the only Gnostic religion to have survived, continuously from antiquity, a living link to this ancient worldview. And this is a really crucial point to remember. Gnosticism was never one single unified religion with a pope and everything. It was a vast and varied landscape of ideas, a collection of different movements and teachers, but they all shared that one common thread: the radical belief that direct personal knowledge, gnosis, was the true key to setting free that divine spark we all have inside. And that's really the heart of it, isn't it? This quote just nails the fundamental shift in perspective that Gnosticism represents. It's a spiritual path that's way less concerned with you being forgiven for your sins and much more focused on you awakening from your ignorance. The problem isn't that we're bad, it's that we're asleep. The story of the Gnostics, silenced for thousands of years and then rediscovered by pure chance in a desert jar, is such a powerful reminder. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If a worldview this rich and complex could be so completely erased, what other voices, what other histories have been lost? What other truths might still be buried out there, just waiting in the sand?